in these times?
So many of the people I work with are healers in one capacity or another. They help people heal their nutrition, and their physical selves. They help people heal their relationship with wealth and debt and money and guilt and all those things. They help people run thriving businesses, but through like energetic practices or like deep
Yeah.
feelings around worthiness or unworthiness. And I'm always really encouraged and filled with hope when I hear the kinds of businesses that people are running online, where it's like, okay, I'm going to help you heal that deep childhood trauma, so you can go out and be, the person who's building the house, who's creating something wonderful, and that I see those the helping industries,
Hmm.
absolutely blossoming right now. So I'm very
Yep.
hopeful.
Yes, I'm so glad you're hopeful. We need more of that because that energy goes out there. And the more you're hopeful, the more you're positive and encouraging and kind and healing, like you said, it comes back to you and it doesn't smack you in the face. It's not like, here's the piece of paper that says you've been doing the work, you've been healing, you've been, working on yourself. It comes to you in feelings. And gosh, I've really been putting it out there and I'm getting it back. I'm seeing
Yeah.
it. So thank
Yeah.
you for being hopeful too.
Well, and
Uh,
it's what you do in your business too, right? It's
yeah.
like showing people there's a better possibility than what they thought they had to put up with, right? So it's
Yes.
like, hey, you can have a home that feels really wonderful to be in and is also safe because you're not using toxic products, and and it's organized, and so it's like easier to go about your daily routines. But showing people in a connected and a fun way, like, hey, there's a better option out here and here's how you could get it, like, that's the direction that marketing is going, and I'm so there for it. I'm so excited
Oh,
for it
good.
because, people are really over feeling like they're being manipulated. They're really over feeling,
Yeah. Lied
overwhelmed with,
to.
like, FOMO.
Yeah. Oh gosh, this is wonderful because this is perfect to go into the next subject, which is you're evolving into a content goddess, which is kind of
Mm.
like because I've been seeing your posts on Facebook and you know, you are you want to kind of get rid of this old way of marketing and like
Yeah.
let's
I actually
all
just recently
embrace it.
co-led a workshop called RIP Marketing.
What? That's
No
great.
for marketing.
Get out of here. So tell me more about content goddess. Ooh, it
Well,
sounds
and
lovely.
you saw, I was showing you before we got started, this is the logo designed
Yeah.
actually by my co-facilitator for RIP Marketing, who's
Oh,
a gifted intuitive brand designer as well, Lady Squirt. But
gorgeous.
yeah, writing is you taking your heart and putting it into words. And when you really write from your authentic voice, it's like Tupperware for your energy, right?
It
So
encapsulates it. It
yeah.
contains it.
So like teaching people to tap into their content goddess for me is about giving them, some practical strategies and some energetic practices and rituals where they get to be in that energy of leadership, excitement, authority, joy, and put it into content that then goes out and makes this big ripple effect and impact on people. But it also means like writing itself energizes you, so instead of
Yeah.
feeling drained, like a lot of owners feel like slaves to content creation. you know it's
Oh,
this
yeah.
machine, and no matter how much I feed it, it's always hungry.
It's an empty void.
Yeah, it's always hungry, and then it's like, "Oh, I have to," you start, like, sawing off your body parts to feed into the machine of content creation, and it doesn't need to be that way. So the idea of being a content goddess is you're so full of this energy that it just radiates out of you, and you're like, "Oh,
Yes.
I can create with joy. Oh, I can create with ease. Oh, I can create," you know, consistently, but without that feeling of it being constant, consistently rather than constantly, if that difference makes sense.
Yes, and you have that ability to inspire people to create that energy within themselves because we don't believe that we have it at all. I
Mm,
can say that right here, me.
yeah.
I just I love it and I used to love writing. I actually started writing a book about 11 years ago and I put it in the trash.
Yeah.
But that happens sometimes. But it having that ability to inspire people is what causes change. And what more do small business owners want? We don't get into small business. This is me saying this again.
Yeah.
I don't get into small business just to make a big chunk of money. I did it because I'm tired of not seeing the change. So I want to facilitate it. I want to inspire people to do the change.
Right.
So, and I feel like that's what you do every day in your words and in your creativity. I mean, it just blew my mind, our
Hmm.
session. By the way, do a session with Megan if you're like, "I don't know what to write anymore." Just do it. Just stop what you're doing and do it. It is worth it. It is wonderful, and I still get inspiration from when I look
Oh,
at it,
I'm
so
so glad to hear that, Megan. But yeah, people start their business with this passion,
yes.
right? And it's like, I'm going to put myself in this. And, it's interesting because the small business owner can still be a very successful business owner.
Yeah.
But when I think of a small business owner, I think of the business owner who is the business. It's like my heart and my passion
Yes.
are driving this. I might have a wonderful team who support me, like I could be making a wonderful income and impact. It's not that like, oh, I have to stay small in terms of impact or income, but it's like it's it's you centered, right? It's like you are the
Yes.
business. So you start with all this passion and then it becomes, but if you want to market, you got to learn to, not be yourself anymore because we create this like separation. Yeah, like I've got to be in this different place in my brain where I'm writing the right way.
I'm the business owner.
And for anybody just listening, there were some massive air quotes that went along with that. Writing the right way, because we have this sense that, and this can go very, very deep, this sense of like,
Yes.
oh, it's not enough just as me, right? Like it's not enough just to show up as me. And it is, of course, wise to understand what connects with people and to know your audience really well and to put in the time and effort and energy to understand them, and where are they coming from. I'm not saying there's no back preparation involved, but the idea that we have to become someone else and that our voice is not enough is one I hope that every business owner, whether your business is small or immense, if it's your passion fueled business, I hope that's something we can have people let go of.
Yes, and that statement, that entire statement that you just made is another big reason why I wanna talk to business owners like you. How important is it? It might be a rhetorical question, it might be something you wanna answer, but how important is it for an individual business owner to be vulnerable with themselves and in their business?
Well, how much do you want to grow?
Ah! See?
Right?
Right? So, dive into that. Tell me more. I'm gonna take a sip of whiskey as I
Well,
usually do.
so if I know everything, I can't grow anywhere, right? Because of like, oh no, I'm not open to any possibilities, to any new information, to any new answers, to other people's input because I already know it all.
Hmm,
So being vulnerable enough to say, I want input from other people. Not I'm going to go wherever they tell me to. Like, you've got your passion and you've got your vision, but to be able to be vulnerable enough to say, what can I learn from other people, including my audience? How can I keep refining what I'm doing? That's where growth comes from. And that's
yes.
also where connection comes from. The fastest way to connect with people is to be vulnerable. And of course, Brene Brown, the queen of vulnerability, talks about this in a very wise way.
Yes.
This is not about info dumping. It's not about TMI. It's not about like, I'm going to share my troubled life
Yeah.
story and then we'll be instant friends, right?
Right.
This is about like transparency and saying,
Mhm.
I'm willing to show up with an open heart, ready to connect with you.
Yep.
And that flips the switch for people. And they're like, oh, well, then I'm willing to show up with an open heart and connect with you, right? And
Well, howdy doody.
yeah, then we get to learn from each other. We get to do business with each other at a more
Yep.
satisfying level. So you've tapped into the heart of it, Meaghan. Vulnerability, uh, I think in business is key, and it is absolutely vital in writing for business.
Yes. Gosh, and it has to be for writing in general if you're writing stories or whatever you're doing in your job if you're determined to write, unless you're having to do it for, a business that wants a very specific way. But if you're writing for yourself or your heart, if you're not open and vulnerable with any aspect of your life, how do you think you're going to evolve in life? You're going to stay in the same spot. And I
Yeah.
think that's a lot of the trouble with some business owners that I've run into, because I knew even before I started this business, I knew I needed to be vulnerable, and I thought I already was. I
Mhm.
wasn't. I
Well, I'm
was
sure you
vulnerable
were,
with
but it doesn't
myself.
mean you can't be more, right?
And that's it, is there is no limit. I mean, yeah, we don't need to know about your TMI Tuesday bathroom adventures. Like, we don't need to know about that. But you do need to realize that you're open to being criticized, and it's how you accept that criticism and how you react to that criticism. And you know, by golly, by being more open and more vulnerable, I've seen personally for me, my business grow in a very short amount of time because I just unlocked that Pandora's box and I just let it completely go. There's some things you guys don't know about me, and you won't, because that's my business. But how do you expect to grow if you are not
Yeah, yeah.
open?
And it is so important to have a very clear definition of vulnerability,
Yes.
because it's not by venting or airing our dirty laundry. Or have you ever seen the movie The Goonies?
Oh, of course.
Of
Like
course, right? And
10
so the
times.
bad guys capture this one kid, and they say, "Tell us everything," meaning like, "Tell us where your
Yeah.
friends are," and and he goes back to like, "And then in first grade, it's like every bad thing he's ever done in his
Oh,
life,
so cute. Yep.
including stealing his uncle's toupee to make a beer for the school play, right? But that kind of that doesn't create connection. Like,
No.
what we're looking for when we're looking for other people who are vulnerable are um qualities of realness and openness.
Yep.
um and you mentioned, like, we're up for criticism, but there's this different way of viewing that, which is
Mhm.
the belief that things happen for us as opposed to us.
Yeah.
Right? So if my ego's not wrapped up in it and somebody says, "Oh gosh, I really wish that, we'd done this instead," or like this had happened, and then you can go, "Oh, I can hear that." And I'm constantly changing and improving how I work and what I do, um, based on people's direct feedback, but mostly just based on showing up, um, honestly, like being honest with myself and getting to
Yeah.
the end of working with a client or a project and going, "Okay, what really worked about that?" What I actually ask these for questions. I encourage my clients to do writing reviews when we work long term. And I ask them to ask themselves these questions, which were, what were my wins? So I can make sure I celebrate that and celebrate my progress. What were my challenges? What's working? And what do I want to try? Right. And this is
Yeah.
a way of being vulnerable, even with yourself, when there's nobody else involved, and you just turn off the voice of ego and say, I I'm striving. Like, I'm striving for excellence. I always want to be improving. What could I be doing that's improving? You know?
Yeah.
And so, another way to look at criticism is like, all right, that's where I know I can rise to the challenge. But also important to know whose feedback um is worth taking in and whose isn't.
Yep. Whose is valuable, right? And that's
Yeah.
another, doing all of these things and making those decisions, letting go of the id and the ego, and just saying, what can I do that might facilitate change in my business, in my life? It's all um It's a journey, it's a lifelong journey. It never ends, and I think that's a big thing too. Sorry, someone's at the door. So this is a great spot, I think, to talk about a couple things to wrap it up. And then let me see here. I'm gonna get back on my computer. Hi. I would like you to be a little vulnerable with me.
Mhm.
Tell me one fun or random fact about yourself that maybe nobody knows that you don't mind sharing with us today.
Ooh. Um, I create I've actually created many more books than the 5 that I've published that have been about
Ooh,
writing.
cool.
Um, my niece actually just turned 12, last week, and I created for her a book. And this is something that I've done nearly every year for her since she's been born. And it is like my auntie way of hopefully planting in her a seed of not just loving reading, because she loves reading, but loving writing and modeling for her, like, follow your passions. And some of these books have been like real hodgepodge when it comes to how they look, like it's me and stick figures. And when she was really
Cute.
little, they were storybooks.
Yeah, that's great.
And then some of them have been, like this latest one I did through Lulu, and I've, took the time to format it and make a nice cover and the whole deal. But it's a way for me to lovingly remove the restriction I might otherwise have on myself to hold off on doing something until I can get it just right. Because I
Oh, that's
guarantee you,
great.
none of these books I've created for her have been perfect. Um, but they're all me putting a passion on the page, like whether, it was a story when she was younger. The book I just created for her is like a reflection journal.
Mhm.
Um, they're me following my passion, even though I'm not able to do it perfectly, because it's so motivating for me to hopefully model, like, this is open to you, like whatever your passions
Yeah.
are. And maybe it won't be writing for her. She's very talented at a lot of things. So who knows what it will be, but like permission to follow your passions, even when they're not perfect. Go for
Yes.
it.
That is such a wonderful thing to send out there to the universe because I think a lot of people struggle with that. It needs to be perfect before I give it to somebody else or before I do something, before I start a business. It has to be perfect.
Yeah.
That is just, and I'm sure your niece is like, "Oh, this is from my auntie Megan." She probably just loves it, and she's gonna remember that forever. It's how you make people feel, and I'm sure she's feeling just
Yeah.
absolutely loved. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. All right, so we have had a lovely session. Thank you so, so much for coming on to the show. I'm sure we will be doing another session again, and who knows, maybe I'll start writing a book. You never
Yeah.
know.
I think everybody has at least one book in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Bare minimum, your life story. I mean, and I'm sure there's
Yeah.
other fun things that we can be creative with and
Yeah.
write stories about. But please tell me how people can contact you, what your main mission is in your business, and go ahead.
All right. I'm on both Facebook and Instagram at Write with Meaghan. And my mission is to help passion fueled, soul led business owners magnetize more of their soulmate clients through copy and content that creates more light in the
Yes.
world, as it helps them create more income and impact.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Megan. And
Thank you,
thank you
Megan.
guys for listening. See you in a couple